Hi, I want to get this out of the way. I enjoy solitude. I like a peaceful life. I like being able to do pretty much whatever I want to do. And I'm doing this video because a friend of mine named Evelyn Parham did a video earlier this week. And the title, I got to look at it real quick, Why I Do Not Like Being Around People. And it's not a very long video, but I said, you know what? I need to do one of those because I agreed with pretty much everything that she said. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my points and we'll see where it goes. And I'm going to ask up front, do any of you have this thing where you like being alone? Doesn't mean that you're always alone. Doesn't mean that, you hate people in any way. But, I read an article this past week where it said something about as you get older and you start sticking more to yourself, it could be signs of dementia. Yeah, right. Here's the thing. Everything that it mentioned, talking about what you might be doing, and it could be related to dementia, none of that is me. It was my mother, but it's not me, and I'm going to talk about my things. So let's talk about my background. My background is, I'm an only child. It was just me, my mother, and my dad. We moved around a lot because he was in the military. So I don't remember much of, when I lived in Texas. I remember certain things being in Japan, and I didn't have a friend in Japan. Then when we came back to the States for a while, and I was living on a military base in North Syracuse, New York, and right now I'm about 10 miles away from there, but still I'm not on the base anymore. I had some friends in school and on the base. And it's a different kind of thing on the base because you live really close to everybody. They're kind of like apartments. Dad was a tech sergeant when he was here, and when we lived in northern Maine, I'll get to that, he was a master sergeant, and, sometimes it's about rank. Officers' kids lived on the total other side of the, of the base, so I only saw them in school. Then I went to school in Kansas City, Missouri when my dad went to Vietnam, and those kids hated me, hated me with a passion. It was in the ghetto, but I wasn't a ghetto person. I had really nice clothes. My mother washed my clothes all the time. I had nice clothes. A lot of those kids wore the exact same clothes every single day. I was way ahead of all of them as far as the school things. For instance, it was 5th grade, and a lot of them was still reading Dick and Jane and learning how to do addition. Didn't understand subtraction or none of that stuff. So I didn't make any friends there. They didn't like me because they eventually had to take me out of classes for my own protection. So I spent pretty much an entire school year and then some by myself in a school. Then I moved to Maine, and I still had this thing that happened in Kansas City. And, I met certain people, but the thing about living on a military base is that people don't stay all that long. Sometimes you meet someone and you may know them for 6 months and they're gone. There's a few people where maybe you know them for 2 or 3 years. That didn't happen with me. Usually I might have known someone for a year and a half and then they'd be gone. By the time that it was time for me to leave, there'd been new people who came in, and that would be me. When we left Limestone, Maine, now it's just them with certain people who we all played different sports things with. I hope that some of those folks still had fun and had friends. I don't know. But then we moved here to Central New York. On July 8th, I will have been here 50 years. And I'm not going to say the name of the city that I live in, but still, I will have been here 50 years. Longest I've ever been anywhere. And for the most part, I've lived alone. The only time I didn't live alone is after I got married. And now she's gone out of the state, got divorced. She's out of the state. Haven't seen her, goodness, 6 years. I had to take care of my mother for a while. Mom did have dementia. Mom passed away on my birthday, September 2021. And it's just me. And, when you've had a lot of time by yourself, because when I was working, almost all my jobs were out of town. So I had long distance rides. I was going to a couple of jobs where it was over an hour away, sometimes an hour and a half away if I had to go into the bigger cities for a meeting. Then I became an independent consultant, and some of those drives were over 6 hours. If I had to deal with snow, I didn't deal with snow. But when I was working, I never missed a snow day. I never missed a day of work because of the weather. And living in central New York, that's a bad thing, but there it is. So I did that. I flew in different places in the country by myself. A lot of those jobs I worked by myself as a consultant. Sometimes I worked with other people, but it was more of an educational thing. So I got used to that, just be me. And right now, my best friend, who I've known for 49 years, he and his wife just moved to Florida to be closer to their kids and their grandkids. Now it's just me. It's not that I don't know certain people in the area, but, one of those things that a lot of people don't prepare themselves for, unless they've lived in the community forever, is that if you get married or when you get married, your life changes a lot. You don't have the same friends. You might not have had a lot of friends when you were still single. Maybe you were going out to the clubs. But now, a lot of the people I know don't go out anymore. I mean, okay, I'm in my 60s. Some of them are in their 60s. Some are in their 50s. A couple in their 40s. But they don't go out all that much anymore. They stick with their family. So that's just how that is. So that's kind of my background. And I've gotten used to that. So, we have that. Then we have the feeling of loss. I will say that the feeling of loss I had with my dad, and then my ex, and then my mother, that's tough. I mean, in a way, that's tough to get over. It was real tough when my dad passed away in 2002. My mother passed away, like I said, on my birthday in 2021. My ex left in 2019. I didn't know she was leaving, but she left. I never saw her again. And like I said, my best friend just left to move to Florida. I don't see me going down to Florida. I don't have the money. It's a little hot down there. The last time I was in Florida, it was 88 degrees. So, it was 88 degrees down there. It was like 55 in my area. I can deal with 55, 60. I don't mind that. But, it's just one of those kind of things. I knew a lot of people when I was in college. I knew a lot of people in college. I saw a lot of those people as my friends. But once you graduated, almost none of those people did I talk to on a regular basis. A lot of them didn't live in Central New York. They lived, most of them lived in the state because I went to a state university. But, every once in a while, you just didn't get to talk to a lot of those people. I'm connected to a few of those people online, on Facebook, but that's about it. Family members, both sides of the family, there's a lot of people who are on mom's side of the family I never knew. I went to a family reunion once. I think it was St. Louis, Missouri. That was weird because I didn't know all those people. It turns out some of those people had pictures of me, so there you go. I had never seen some of those pictures. Then I found out later on, Mom had some pictures. She just never showed them to me. On my dad's side of the family, I knew them a little better because whenever Dad, had time off, we would go and visit his family in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Well, some people still live there, but some of them moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia. I can't think of the last time I saw any of those folks. I'm connected to some of them on Facebook, but I can't remember the last time I saw any of them in person. I saw one of my cousins. He was kind of another traveler, but he lives in Chicago, and he's a lot like me in the fact that he doesn't have friends either. He's got a couple of acquaintances. He spends a lot of his time by himself. He's taking care of his mother still. And he's a computer guy, and this is what I do. I spend most of my time on the computer. So, it's one of those kind of things where you had that feeling of loss in a way. I mean, like I said, he still got his father and his mother still alive. My Uncle Red, and yes, that's his name, is Red Jr. But he's like, what is he, 95, I think? He's, that's just how that goes. So, it's a weird thing where you have that feeling of loss. You just can't keep up with everything else. Meeting new people is difficult, though. Like I said, I traveled for work. So in the early 2000s, when I decided I was going to see if I could work for myself and generate certain income, I went to a lot of networking events. But I can't say that I met a lot of people. I mean, you meet people, but you don't remember who they are. They don't know who you are. And almost always, this is something a lot of people don't deal with, almost always I was the only black person in the room. And you would think that maybe folks would say, well, I'm going to remember him because he's the only black person in the room. And no. Matter of fact, I've had some people years later, around that time period, where they would come up to me and introduce themselves to me as this is the first time I've ever met them. And sometimes I didn't remember their names, but I would remember that I met them. But then that died out. I'm not really good at meeting new people. Now, it's funny because I have this part-time job where I deliver pharmaceuticals, and those people embrace me really quickly. I think it's funny because sometimes, they get to telling you their story. I may have worked in healthcare, but I'm not a healthcare clinician. I don't know a lot of that stuff, but people like to tell stuff. And, that's different though. I take something to them, I have them sign something, I leave. Sometimes I'm delivering something to them every week. Sometimes it's once or twice a month, because my prescriptions, some of those I get, there's only a 30-day supply. Some are 90-day supply. So that's just how that works. But, I meet those folks, but I don't know those folks. It's not supposed to be anything else. I do know some people who say to me, well, why don't you go out and meet someone? Go out where? Back in the 80s and 90s, heck, the late 70s, we had dance clubs all over town. People these days say, oh, disco was terrible. You know what? Disco was not terrible, but the places were packed. People dressed up. You could go out there. It didn't matter if you knew anybody or what. Sometimes, this was so weird, sometimes women would come up to me and just say, come on out and dance with me. I didn't know who they were. You'd go out on the floor and dance. So it was a lot easier back then. But see, that was my thing, going out to dance clubs. The music was the kind of thing I liked hearing. I didn't go out to people, with people I didn't know to go to the symphony. I went to the symphony a lot. I went to plays a lot. But I knew people for that. So, that's kind of changed. I think that probably this year, if I get the nerve, I may go to the New York State Fair for only the second time by myself. Because there were other times where if it was going to be just me going, I'm not going. I'm staying there. However, the state fair, it changes a lot every year. I might go out and do that. But it's still not one of those kind of things where I'm going to go out of my way to try to meet new people. Try new foods, see new displays, yes. Desserts, obviously. But, that's just not one of those kind of things of meeting new people. I don't know where to meet people these days. It's a totally different world. Maybe it's just me, but some of the people I know are saying, oh, I don't get out all that often anymore either. So it's not just me. I'm not that good at what they call small talk. Small talk. Small talk. I'm not good at that. Now, there were times when my ex and I were going to holiday parties. And one of those weird things is that even if I knew a lot of those folks, I didn't just stand there and talk to them. I didn't know what to say. So eventually I would find a spot on my own, sit on a couch. Maybe if there was something I could eat, I would have that with me. And then I would look around. If they had books on the shelf, I may look at the books. And eventually people would gravitate towards me. And if they started a subject, then I could talk. I didn't know what to talk with people about because I mainly knew science fiction stuff. I knew my kind of music. I knew certain other things, but I just didn't think those folks would be interested in that. But when they brought up a topic, if I don't know it, I can ask them something about it. If I know something about it, I can now talk with someone about it. But I didn't initiate conversations. It just wasn't my thing. So, I don't know really how to do that. If other people know it, I'd love to hear it, but it's just not my thing. Who do you trust? That's a tough one. Like I said early on, it's not just me. I've seen one of my relatives in the last, 2021. That's the last time I saw a relative. So I guess we're going on 4 years. And she lives in New York City, in the Bronx. And I've never been to the Bronx. Been to the city, never been to the Bronx. But she also has a house down in Florida. So I haven't seen her all that often. She's really pretty much the only person on that side of the family, on mom's side of the family, that I've talked to. That's not bad. On the other side, I've had a couple of cousins reach out to me on the phone. By the way, I'm going to come back to that in a second. And I talk to them, and they say, yeah, you should call us more often, or whatever. Well, more often, since I haven't called at all, that's probably, kind of a misnomer. But I'm going to call some of them more often. They're older than me, so I want to talk to them. I've known them longer. Can't say I know them really well, but they're older, and those are folks who I should just check in on to make sure that everything's going along okay. Like I said, I'm connected to some of those folks on Facebook, so I should do that. I trust them, but since I don't really know a lot about them, they don't know a lot about me, I don't like to divulge a lot of stuff to anybody. So I don't know if they know I'm diabetic. I don't know if they know a lot of other stuff about me, because when I talk to them on the phone, we never talk about stuff like that. It's rare to talk on the phone. So, who do I trust? I trust me. And sometimes I don't trust me, especially when I've had one of those days and I've eaten a whole bunch of dessert at night, and now I'm getting ready to take my insulin, and it's like, yeah, this isn't going to do almost nothing because I ate bad. Or on days where I've eaten very little and I still have to take an injection, because you just never know what's going to happen, and I have to worry about that. So I don't necessarily even trust me. Now, I mentioned, talking to someone on the phone. Well, here's one of those weird things. Unless I'm looking at the phone, I don't talk to people on the phone. I don't answer doorbells. I don't answer doorbells because I don't think the doorbell has worked in over 2 years. I did buy one of those Ring camera things. I bought this thing here, and it turns out I have to have one of those plug-in things, that you can do with it. It didn't come with it. This is what happens when you buy something on eBay. I bought something, and it turned out that was a scam, so eBay gave me back my money. I went to Home Depot. Turns out they don't actually carry those things in the store. You can order it through their store, and then they will have someone send it there. It will take about 5 days. I don't know. One of these days I might do it. But overall, I don't answer those things. I don't answer the phone. Obviously, I'm not answering the phone on the days that I work. But on other times, if I don't look over at the phone, the phone, if I don't look over there and don't see the light, because I never hear anything. I've got the sound turned off on that and on the smartphone. But if I don't look over, I don't answer the phone. I don't actually know how to turn on the ringer on the smartphone. I don't know. I deliver pharmaceuticals. I call people from this phone. And then every once in a while, maybe an hour and a half later, I will take a quick stop to see if there's any messages coming from the office or anything like that. And sometimes I see this, a couple of phone calls. And I look at it and say, I don't know who these people are. I didn't know anything. If I don't know who it is, I'm not going to answer it. At least the folks at work have their name on it, so I know that. So I don't answer the phone calls. I will get a lot of weird email. I don't talk to a lot of people I don't know through email either, although I will communicate with folks I do know if it's email. So I told everyone, if you really want to reach me, send me email. That's a shame, but that's just, kind of how my life is. And here's the last part. And, there's nothing bad with this. I think this is wonderful. I can eat my meals alone, whether I'm at home or I decide I'm going to take myself to a restaurant. I can eat my meals alone. I can eat whatever I want to do. Otherwise, I can do whatever I want to do. So every once in a while, I will hop in the car, drive to the mall just to walk the mall. Not to buy anything, just to walk the mall. If I want to buy something, then I go to the mall for that specific purpose. I can eat at the mall. That works well. But in the town I live in, there's like 11 or 12 different restaurants around here. I ate at a restaurant last night with a friend of mine who actually, she had kind of disappeared for a while, and now she lives back in the area. We live relatively close. I don't see her all that often, but we went to a restaurant that back in the mid 2010s, I was going there every 2 or 3 weeks. I enjoyed it a lot. I sit down and I look at this menu last night and I'm saying, what is this stuff? I didn't remember anything. But I could just go there. I could go to all these other places. Some places I can go there and pick up just delivery. I have one place, it's a pizza place, and every Wednesday it's eat all you can eat buffet. But since I can't eat as much as I used to, I just do it because the price is right. I just love that I can do that. Now, some of my friends know I'm diabetic, so I get grief on what some of them think I shouldn't be eating or how some of them think I should be eating. And after all these years, I pretty much ignore a lot of that stuff, except for a couple of people who are diabetic, who know a little bit more about these things. And now that I have a new nurse who I just met Monday, I might listen to them, because the one I had for the last 5 or 6 years, we didn't get along. And because of that, we kind of fought, argued, disagreed more than I would just listen to what she had to say. No. I didn't like that at all. And now, the one who I met, I will at least talk to her. I will listen. Anyway, it's one of those kind of things where overall, solitude. What do I do in my solitude? I spend most of my time on the computer. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I write. I still have 3 blogs. I write for my accountant. And that's it. I don't know. One of my other friends, he spends most of his time in the house at his computer. I have another friend who she spends almost all of her time watching TV. I don't know anything else she does, because all she tells me about is what's happening on TV. So, as we get older, if we don't have kids, we don't have other family members around, that just may be the thing that we do. We're not feeling bad for ourselves, most of us. Some people do. Most of us, we don't feel bad about it. It's not a bad way to live a life. If you want to go do something else, you can do that. My neighbor across the street, she's in her early 70s. I felt bad for her, because when she and her husband moved into the house, they moved right across the street, and they were only there 3 months, and then he passed away. He had a heart attack, and she decided to stay there. And so I talk to her from time to time, but she goes to the Y. I don't know which one, but she goes there to work out with those people to help keep herself limber. Heck, I walk 5 miles every day. I'm looking to get that up to 7 at a certain point. I've been walking that for 10 years. That's how I, quote unquote, keep in shape. I lost a lot of weight, and then I plateaued, and I haven't lost anything since. But we'll see what happens. So, like I said, I enjoy the solitude. It would be nice having, a couple of friends who I could go out with a lot. But the people I know, that's not anything they do either. What a weird life. Anyway, that's what I've got. I put timestamps in, so if no one made it this far, or maybe you jumped around, but there's timestamps. And it'll be in the beginning there where you write down all this stuff. Anyway, my name's Mitch Mitchell. Let me know your thoughts. Check out Evelyn's. Comment if you find something there you want to comment on. Tell her I sent you. And that's all I've got. Y'all take care. Have a wonderful day.